Hi, I'm Daoud Taimagambet, and I'm the host of the Principles of Economics course. Today we will talk about supply and demand, the two words economists use most often. Supply and demand are the forces that make market economies work. They determine the quantity of each good produced and the price at which it is sold. If you want to know how any event or policy will affect the economy, you must first think about how it will affect supply and demand. The terms supply and demand refer to the behavior of people as they interact with one another in competitive markets. A market is a group of buyers and sellers of a particular good or service. The buyers as a group determine the demand for the product, and the sellers as a group determine the supply of the product. For example, let's take the market for an ice cream. Like most markets in the economy, this market is highly competitive. Each buyer knows that there are several sellers from which to choose, and each seller is aware that his product is similar to the offered by other sellers. As a result, the price and quantity of an ice cream sold are not determined by any single buyer or seller. Rather, price and quantity are determined by all buyers and sellers as they interact in the marketplace. Economists use the term competitive market to describe a market in which there are so many buyers and so many sellers that each has a minimal impact on the market price. Each seller of an ice cream has limited control over the price because other sellers are offering similar products. A seller has little reason to charge less than the going price, and if he charges more, buyers will make their purchases elsewhere. Similarly, no single buyer of an ice cream can influence the price of an ice cream because each buyer purchases only a small amount. The quantity demanded of any good is the amount of the good that buyers are willing and able to purchase. As we will see, many things determine the quantity demanded of any good, but in our analysis of how market works, one determinant plays central role: the price of the good. If the price of an ice cream rose to $20 per scoop, you would buy less ice cream. If the price of an ice cream fell to $1 per scoop, you would buy more. This relationship between price and quantity demanded is true for most goods in the market. And in fact, it is so common that economists call it the law of demand. When the price of a good rises, the quantity demanded falls. And when the price falls, the quantity demanded rises. This table shows how many ice cream cones one customer buys each month at different prices. If ice cream is free, he eats 12 cones per month. At 50 cents per cone, he buys 10 cones each month. As the prices rise further, he buys less and less ice cream. When the price reaches $3, he doesn't buy any cones at all. This table is called demand schedule, a table that shows the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded. This graph uses the numbers from the demand schedule to illustrate the law of demand. The price of an ice cream is on the vertical axis, and the quantity demanded is on the horizontal axis. The line representing price and quantity demanded is called the demand curve. The demand curve slopes downward because a lower price means a greater quantity demanded. Now let's talk about the shifts in the demand curve. Any change that increases the quantity demanded at every price shifts the demand curve to the right, and it is called an increase in demand. Any change that reduces the quantity demanded at every price shifts the demand curve to the left, and is called a decrease in demand. These are many variables that can shift the demand curve. Let's consider the most important ones. Let's start with income. What would happen to your demand for ice cream if you lost your job? Most likely it would fall. A lower income means that you have less money to spend in total, so you would have to spend less on some goods. If the demand for a good falls, when income falls, the good is called normal good. If the demand for a good rises when income falls, the good is called inferior good. An example of inferior good might be bus rides. As your income falls, you are less likely to buy a car or take a taxi. and more likely to ride a bus. Now, let's consider the effects of prices of related goods. Suppose that the price of a frozen yogurt falls. The low demand said that you will buy more frozen yogurt, and at the same time, you will probably buy less ice cream, because ice cream and frozen yogurts are both cold, sweet, creamy desserts, and they satisfy similar desires. When a fall in the price of one good reduces the demand for the another one, the two goods are called substitutes. Substitutes are often pairs of goods that are used in place of each other, such as hot dogs and burgers, cinema tickets and Netflix, for example. Now, what happens when a fall in the price of one good raises the demand for another one? Then two goods are called complements. Complements are often pairs of goods that are used together, such as petrol and cars, computers and software, and so on. Tastes. The most obvious determinant of your demand is your taste. If you like an ice cream, you buy more of it. Simple as that. Expectations. Your expectations about the future may affect your demand for a good or service today. If you expect to earn more income next month, you may choose to save less now and spend more of your income for buying an ice cream, for example. Number of buyers. When the number of buyers increase, the quantity demanded in the market would be higher at every price, and the market demand would increase. So basically, income, prices of related goods, tastes, expectations, and the number of buyers are all variables that influence how much of a good consumers choose to buy. Now, let's talk about supply. The quantity supplied of a good or service is the amount that sellers are willing and able to sell. There are many determinants of quantity supplied, but once again, price plays a special role in this analysis. When the price of an ice cream is high, selling ice cream is profitable, and so the quantity supplied is large. Sellers of an ice cream work long hours, buy many ice cream machines, and hire many workers. But when the price of an ice cream is low, the business is less profitable, so sellers produce less ice cream. At a low price, some sellers may even choose to shut down, and their quantity supplies falls to zero. This relationship between price and quantity supplied is called the law of supply. When the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied also rises. And when the price falls, the quantity supplied falls as well. Now, let's talk about the shifts in the supply curve. For example, suppose the price of a sugar falls. Sugar is an input in the production of ice cream. So the fall in the price of sugar makes selling ice cream more profitable. This raises the supply of ice cream. At any given price, sellers are now willing to produce a larger quantity. As a result, the supply curve for an ice cream shifts to the right. This figure illustrates shifts in supply. Any changes that raises quantity supplied at every price, such as a fall in the price of a sugar, shifts the supply curve to the right, and it is called an increase in supply. Any change that reduces the quantity supplied at every price shifts the supply curve to the left, and it is called a decrease in supply. There are many variables that can shift the supply curve. Let's consider the most important ones. First one, input prices. To produce their output of ice cream, sellers use various inputs, such as cream, sugar, flavoring, ice cream machines, and so on. When the price of one or more of these inputs rises, producing ice cream is less profitable, and firms supply less ice cream. Second one, technology. The technology for turning inputs into ice cream is another determinant of supply. For example, the invention of mechanized ice cream machine will reduce the amount of labor necessary to make ice cream. By reducing firms' costs, the advance in technology raised by the supply of ice cream. Third one, expectations. The amount of ice cream a firm supplies today may depend on its expectations about the future. For example, if a firm expects the price of ice cream to rise in the future, it will put some of its current production into storage and supply less to the market today. Last one, number of sellers. In addition to the preceding factors which influence the behavior of individual sellers, market supply depends on the number of these sellers. When the number of sellers decrease, the supply in the market would fall. So having analyzed supply and demand separately, we now combine them to see how they determine the price and quantity of a good in the market. This figure shows the market supply curve and market demand curve together. Notice that there is a point at which the supply and demand curves intersect. This point is called the market's equilibrium point, a situation in which the market price has reached the level at which quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded. The price at this intersection is called the equilibrium price, and the quantity is called the equilibrium quantity. Here the equilibrium price is $2 per cone, and the equilibrium quantity is 7 ice cream cones. The actions of buyers and sellers naturally move markets toward the equilibrium of supply and demand. To see why, consider what happens when the market price is not equal to the equilibrium price. Suppose first that the market price is above the equilibrium price. At a price of $2.50 per cone, the quantity of the goods supplied, which is 10 cones, exceeds the quantity demanded, which is 4 cones. There is a surplus of the good. Suppliers are unable to sell all they want at the going price. A surplus is sometimes called a situation of excess supply. When there is a surplus in the market, sellers of ice cream find their freezers increasingly full of ice cream they would like to sell but cannot. They respond to the surplus by cutting their prices. Falling prices increase the quantity demanded and decrease the quantity supplied. These changes represent movements along the supply and demand curves, not shifts in the curves. Prices continue to fall until the market reaches the equilibrium. Now, suppose that the market price is below the equilibrium price. In this case, the price is $1.50 per cone, and the quantity of the good demanded exceeds the quantity supplied. There is a shortage of the good. Demanders are unable to buy all they want at the going price. A shortage is sometimes called a situation of excess demand. When a shortage occurs in the ice cream market, buyers have to wait in the long lines for a chance to buy one of the few cones available. With too many buyers chasing too few goods, sellers can respond to the shortage by raising their prices without losing sales. This price increases cause the quantity demanded to fall and the quantity supplied to rise. Once again, these changes represent movements along the supply and demand curves, and they move the market toward the equilibrium. So, regardless of whether the price starts off too high or too low, the activities of the many buyers and sellers automatically push the market price toward the equilibrium price. Once the market reaches its equilibrium, then buyers and sellers are all satisfied. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening to the 4th lecture of the Principle of Economics course. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. Good luck and see you soon.